Hi and welcome to my course AWS CDK CI/CD with CodePipeline. In this video course we will see exactly this, how to implement a code pipeline for a CDK project with CodePipeline. What we will see inside this video, there's a full outline in the description. But we will see in the beginning how we can link our source code from GitHub to our AWS account by using a GitHub token and how we can link it to AWS Secret Manager. Then we will talk about CI/CD code pipeline as a construct. We will talk about stages, about automated tests. It will be interesting. And I want to tell you, this video course is part of a much larger course. You can check the link in the description. This being said, let's get to work. Well, to start our CI/CD application, we need first of all to link our AWS resources to our GitHub repository. And for this, we need an important thing called a GitHub token. We will take that from inside our GitHub account, we will generate it, and then in this lecture, we will also add it to AWS Secrets Manager. This way, our AWS resources and our repository from GitHub will be linked together. Let's get to work. So what we need to do is to first create a GitHub token. And I've prepared this lecture by reading the documentation of AWS CodePipeline source. This is the one. And we will use the information from the static GitHub method. Here, if I go down the line, it will tell us that it will use a GitHub token stored inside AWS Secrets Manager with this exact name. So this is what we will do. First of all, I will go inside my GitHub account and inside the settings. At the lower down, I have the developer settings. And here I have personal access tokens. I will create a new classic token. This is the one. I will generate a new token. Just a classic one. And here inside the GitHub page, I will just add a note right here. I will say right here AWS pipeline, so I know what this is for and what rights this token needs. Again, if we look at the documentation, the documentation tells us that this token should have repo and admin repo hook rights. So inside the token, I will select repo and admin hook rights. This is the one, and I will just create the token. Well, I've generated the token and I've copied it to clipboard. Now I'm inside my AWS account, inside the service called AWS Secrets Manager. This is the one, a great feature from AWS. I will go to secrets and I will store a new secret. I will just select right here other type of secret, and the type of this secret will be plain text. And here I will just paste my the token exactly as I got it from GitHub, and I will go to next, and I will give this secret a name. And the name should be, if I don't want to add any other documentation or any other options, the name should be just GitHub -token. This is the one. I will click on next, and then I will, in the end, create this token. Alright, and now we have a GitHub token. This means that we are ready to link our AWS resources to our GitHub repository. Because things will get a little complicated, I prefer to start with a fresh CDK project from the CDK init command. So I won't be working on any existing projects inside this course. I will create a brand new CDK TypeScript project and start working on it and build our CI/CD pipelines. Well, let's get to work, and I'm inside the repository of this course, and I will create a new folder. I will call this CDK CI CD, just like this, or better, I will start a terminal inside this folder. So here I'll say CDK CD CDK. All right. And here I will initialize a new TypeScript project with CDK init an application, and the language is TypeScript. Wait a little. Alright, the project is initialized and also the dependencies are installed. Let me just make a little cleaning inside this project. As you can see, we have the bin, the lib and the test folders. Here we have like a simple test. These sample tests are created with SQS. I don't really need anything right now. I will just try to clean things right here. I will say this initial test. We will talk about testing later on in this section. Alright, what else do we need to clean? Inside the lib, here we have the folder, the CI/CD stack, just like this. Well, I don't need an import of SQS. I don't need any command right here. Alright, and what else do we need? Inside the bin, everything should be alright. Let me just clean everything. Alright, and we have our bin application, we have a new application and a new CI/CD stack. Let's see if they are working. So with this empty project, first of all, I will call CDK bootstrap inside this folder. It doesn't really matter if you did it before. I just do it from time to time for good measure, because I had problems which came because I didn't bootstrap my code, but they were very misleading. So I will bootstrap my environment again. Alright, I will call CDK synth to see if everything is alright. Alright, and CDK deploy, and we should see this empty stack inside our CloudFormation view. Alright, the stack is deployed. Let's see how it is looking inside the CloudFormation view. Well, I'm inside my CloudFormation view. As you can see, I have my CDK toolkit and my CI/CD stack. I've deleted all other stacks to know that we are focusing on this CI/CD stuff. As a last point inside this lecture, I will commit everything, and I will say right here CI/CD project init, just like this. And for good measure, I will work on a different branch from now on inside this course, because I have other projects lying out inside this repository, so I don't want a build to be triggered every time I make a change in the other projects. So I will work with this CI/CD stuff on a different branch. I will do this with git checkout -b CI/CD practice. This way I'm creating a new branch. You don't have to do this if you're not having multiple projects right here. I will just publish this branch. VS Code is very kind to help me do this, and we are ready to really start building our CI/CD functionality in the next lecture. Well, it's time for us to build our CI/CD pipeline, and the construct that we will be using is called CodePipeline. So inside our stack, and this will be our main stack, the CDK CI/CD stack, you can give it whatever name you like. I will create inside the constructor, this is the way to do it with TypeScript, I will create a new CodePipeline. So CodePipeline, this is the one, and please use the import from AWS CDK lib pipelines, not the ones from events targets. This is the one. This CodePipelines belongs to this stack. Let's give it an ID, and I will call this awesome pipeline and some properties. And here is where things get interesting. First of all, let's give it a pipeline name. I like to name my resources, even though some say that this is not a good practice. Well, we have a name, and there's an important path, an important point inside this pipeline with a synth entry. Well, this is what this pipeline will actually do. And as the synth step, this will be a shell step. So here I will call a new construct called new shell step. I don't know why it's called like this. This is the way to do it. And this is what it will do. It will synth. And then again some other properties, and the most important point is the input, where this pipeline will take its code. Well, this pipeline will take its code from GitHub. So here I'll say code pipeline source, this is the one, and we are calling the static method GitHub. And here we need to provide, first of all, we need to provide, okay, finally to see the documentation. We need first of all to provide a path to our repository. And this path is like our username and the name of our project. So in my case is my GitHub username, this is the one, and the name of my repository. This is the one in my case, you can put the one in your case. And again, the second argument is the branch. You can have the main branch if you don't have a different branch, but since I'm working on a different branch, I will call right here CI CD practice like this. And the other important point is the commands, which is an array of commands that we will do once we get this code CI. And what this pipeline will do? Well, after it takes the code from GitHub, it should just run our code. But since our code is into a separate subfolder, first of all, we need to call CD inside our folder. So CD CDK CI CD. Again, you don't have to do this if you are having like a classic way of doing things where the project is inside your root directory. And then we need to call npm clean install, and the other command that we need to call is cdk synth, and the last step that we need to call is the synth command. So here I'll say npx cdk synth. This is the one. I think the npx we shouldn't really need it, we should just like call it npm run, but the documentation tells us to call npx. I will do it like this. Again, a very important step. If you have like a different folder of your project like I do, you also need to specify the primary output directory. And this primary output directory is my CI/CD folder right here /cicd.out, cdk.out. This is only in case you are working in a different directory, just as I do. Otherwise, you don't need this. Alright, and we are done. We can call cdk synth to see if everything is alright. And just as info for you, this is the code for our code pipeline. But if we look at the synthesized template right here, this is the one, the template from JSON, you will see that it is a huge template. And even if we have like a few lines of code right here, the resources for this pipeline will be huge, will be a lot, because there are many roles, there are many resources that need to be provisioned. So CDK does a lot for us with just a few lines of code. Well, let's deploy this. CDK deploy. And if we look at this confirmation step, we can see how many roles are created for this pipeline. Yes, I approve this. Well, the pipeline is deployed. Let's check it on CloudFormation, and here is our stack. And if we look at the stack info right here at the resources, you will see how many resources we have, like the pipeline and like the called like the update pipeline. All right, and this is an important because this is a self-mutating pipeline. This means that when we add modifications to our pipeline, it will first update its implementation, and then if there are modifications inside our other codes, it will implement them. And let's see this in action in the service code pipeline. I will open this inside a new tab, and as you can see, here we have a new pipeline. I called it awesome pipeline, and as you can see, it is in progress. If I also go, first of all, when we are deploying the pipeline, we should see it inside the code build entry right here. And this is our awesome pipeline. And we can see that this is in progress, and this takes a while to run. And if you don't have had any typos, it should be successful. But let's wait and see. Yes, there's one last step that I need to make, and I forgot to take it. Inside the CI/CD, in the bin folder, in the bin entry, now the pipeline will call synth for us, but we will not actually call synth. We need to call it from inside our app. So right here I can call app synth. This is an important step. Without it, it won't work. And what I will do now, I will commit this change. And I will say right here, pipeline init. And now let's observe our pipeline. Well, our pipeline is succeeded. This means that at this point we have a fully working pipeline, and we are able to add other resources to it. This pipeline will hold from now on, and it will deploy all our resources. Let's see how we can do this in the next lecture. Now we will talk about CDK stages, and let's first understand what they are and why we need them inside our pipelines. Well, until now with CDK, if you worked with beginner projects, what we did, we define our stacks. If we look at inside our code, inside any CDK project, we define the stack like right here. We have an application right here, and then we call CDK since and CDK deploy. We call this by hand inside the command line interface. Well, we have them right there, and then we deploy them by hand. But what we will do from now on? From now on, these steps will be taken by our code pipeline. Well, inside our bin file right here, we will only have one stack that defines our pipeline, just like it is at the moment. Maybe inside other projects, if you remember, we had multiple stacks right here, all of them added to the app. From now on, we will have only one stack added to the main application. Well, that pipeline stack will contain stages, and this is the novelty of this lecture and of this whole section. Well, we have this construct stage that we will be using, and we will add these stages to our pipelines. And these stages will hold other stacks. Maybe we can have multiple stages, like a test stage, like a production stage, or one stage inside an AWS region, another stage inside other AWS region. There are multiple ways in which we can define our CI/CD pipelines. The important thing is that you should know we will have stages, and those stages will hold other stacks than the pipeline stack. Well, after we have all this configured, when we have a modification inside our source code, then the pipeline will take care of this syncing and deploying the changes. Well, to understand this better, let's get to work and build a stage for our pipeline. Well, inside our project, I will create, inside the lib folder, I will create a new file. I will call this pipeline stage, because I want to add some modifications to it. And this will be a simple CDK construct. So here I'll say export. And the novelty right here is that we extend the stage class, the stage from CDK lib. And the construct is almost similar like other constructs. We have a constructor that requires a scope of type construct. It requires an ID of type string, and it requires some properties. Props of type stack props, and the properties of type stage props. All right, and here we need to call super with our scope, our ID, and our props. The thing right here is that these properties should be required. They are not optional like we did it with other CDK stacks. All right, and as I said, this stage will contain our other CDK stacks. And to understand better, let's build a CDK stack, a Lambda stack. So I will also build a new file right here, and I will call this Lambda stack ts. And again, this will be a stack. So here I'll say this will extend the stack class. All right, the same constructor with everything. I will even copy this because I'm lazy. And the only difference right here is that this should be stack props. Alright, but I want to enforce that this Lambda stack should receive a stage name. So here I will extend the stack properties right here, and here I'll say interface Lambda stack props. This will extend our stack props, and I want to add here a stage name of type string. And with this stage name, we will use it inside our Lambda. Maybe we want to know if we are in production or in a test to do different things. All right, and for the moment, I will leave things like this. I will not add anything to this stack. I just want to see that this stack is deployed by our CI/CD pipeline. Well, we have this Lambda stack. Let's call it inside our stage. So inside our stage, we will have a new Lambda stack. So right here, I will call new Lambda stack. And this Lambda stack belongs to this construct. The name should be, the ID should be Lambda stack. And the properties, because I enforce properties, is required stage name. And the stage name comes from our properties stage name. And this is a TypeScript problem because this stage name should be defined, but this is not defined right here. I can make things more clearer, like making this stage name optional right here. Alright, and now we have this stage name as properties of this Lambda stack. The last step that we need to add is now to add this pipeline stage to our CI/CD. Alright, our CI/CD stack, this is our pipeline. Now we need a reference to our pipeline, so here I'll say const pipeline is a new code pipeline, and I will call here const test stage is our pipeline, add stage. We can also have waves, but I will add stage. Alright, and this will be a new pipeline, or how did I call it, pipeline stage. This is the one that belongs to this stack, and the name is pipeline test stage, and also this requires a stage name. So here I'll say stage name, let's just make this test like this, and we are good to go. Let's not deploy this, let's just commit all these changes. I will save everything and I will commit all these changes, and I will call this added test stage and Lambda stack. Alright, and I will commit this, and then we will have to wait a little. Of course, we also need to pull all our changes. Alright, and now I can check my pipeline, and as you can see, we have our awesome pipeline. It takes a while to configure. As you can see, it has multiple steps at this point. But if we look at our CloudFormation, we should wait a little. We should wait a little until we will see a Lambda stack right here. Alright, and things are moving inside our pipeline, and let me tell you, they are moving really slow, even if we don't have any resources inside our CloudFormation templates. We have the source step, which was completed. Now we have the build step, which was completed. It took a while. Now we have the step to update the pipeline, and we are waiting for the step to test and to deploy our new stack. Alright, the update pipeline step was also done. We are waiting for this prepare and deploy our new stacks. Alright, and things are moving very nicely. If we switch back to the CloudFormation view, now we will see that we would have a new stack, our test Lambda stack, but we called it Lambda stack. CDK also added test before it, so we know that it belongs to the test stage. At this point, everything works as it should, and from now on we can really enjoy the power of CodePipeline and CI/CD. This means that at this point we are able to add new resources to our project, just commit them, and AWS CodePipeline will do the rest for us. Let's now add a real Lambda inside this empty Lambda stack, and I will add a new TypeScript Lambda, a very basic Lambda. And what I like to do is I like to put my Lambda code inside a new folder, which I call services. And in this services folder, I will create a new file. I will just call this hello.ts. You know, the usual dumb lambda that you see everywhere. And here all we need to do is to have a handler function. So here I'll say async function handler. This receives an event of type any and a context of type any. Doesn't really matter at this point. Let's just return something resembling with a status code. Maybe say here status code 200, and as a body, let's just say right here hello, something like this. Alright, and export this Lambda. Alright, this is the syntax that we need in order for a Lambda. And now let's import this code inside this Lambda stack. So here I will use a construct called node Lambda. So here I will say new node.js function. This is the one that belongs to this stack. Let's just call this hello Lambda, and let's just add some properties right here. First of all, the runtime should be runtime node.js 18. This is the latest one at this point. Maybe for you it is newer. The handler function is this handler. If we look, is this handler. This is the name of the function. So here the handler is handler, and the most important point is the entry, and here is where we are specifying the actual code. So here we need first of all to call join from path, and here we can specify the dir name, and now we can directly navigate through this like we would navigate inside the terminal. So we want to go one folder app like this, then we want to enter the services folder, and then we want to access the hello.ts file. So here I will say hello.ts file, and basically we are done. Let's also specify the environment, and let's specify right here a stage, and the stage will be our properties, stage name. Let's see if this is propagated correctly. All right, stage name, let's just be sure that this is defined at this point. All right, we are good to go. Let's see if this is working. Let's save everything, and we can check if this is working by calling locally CDK synth to make sure that we configured this path correctly right here. So here also I will call CDK synth. All right, and we have a problem because we need a new dependency. Yeah, Docker, it really needs Docker, or better, it needs ES build. In order to transpile this TypeScript code into JavaScript, it requires a module bundler, and by default it should call ES build. If it doesn't find ES build, it calls for Docker. I don't have installed any of them inside this project, but all I need to do is to call npm install ES build. Wait a little. All right, and let's try CDK synth one more time. All right, and if we look now at our asset, you will see at some point we have our index.js, and as you can see, this is our nice handler. All we need to do at this point, we won't deploy anything. Let's just commit to source control and see if everything works as it should. All right, I will just right here added hello lambda and ES build, and I will push these changes and then wait a little for the CI/CD to run. And as you can see inside our code pipeline, our pipeline is now in progress since we committed this, added hello lambda and ES build. We can even see the commit message right here, and let's wait a little to see if everything is all right. Well, these pipelines take forever. I don't know, maybe there's a way to speed things up. At this point they took like 5 minutes have passed, and only now we are reaching the point where we are deploying our test stage. We are preparing and then deploying our new CloudFormation templates. Let's check our CloudFormation stack. And as you can see at this point, our Lambda stack is in state update in progress. Let's wait for a few more moments and let's see if our Lambda will be created. All right, our Lambda stack is updated complete. Let's check it. So as you can see, here we have this Lambda stack, and here we have our hello Lambda. Let's check it inside the Lambda view. I even have a link to it inside this CloudFormation view. Let's check its code, and if we check it right here, we can see the code of our Lambda. As you can see, it is the one that we deployed. Of course, it's transpiled to JavaScript, and everything of this happened only from our source control. Let's move on into the next lecture and let's see if we can add some testing, some automated testing to our pipeline. At the heart of any CI/CD pipeline, there is testing. A lot of tests, unit tests, integration tests, a lot of automated tests. I'll show you in this lecture how we can configure testing locally. An important part of this job was already done by CDK init. It installed Jest, it configured Jest, and all we need to do is to write a very basic test for our Lambda. And then in the second part of this lecture, I will show you how you can add a testing step inside our CI/CD pipeline. Let's get to work. So we have our Lambda stack and we have our test folder. If you remember when we initialized this project, we had this test folder. Let's write things a little better right here, and I will first of all write a describe block, and here I'll just say hello describe test suite, and let's also add a test right here, test, and we should just say inside this test should return 200 handler, like here handler should return 200, and let's call our handler. So here I'll say const result is, maybe make this async, await our handler and the handler from our services from our hello with just something and something, doesn't really matter. Here we are expecting that our result status code, we want this to be 200. Alright, this is our very simple test. Let's see if locally it is working, and it is configured in the package.json file right here. We have this test which accesses jest. All this work was done by CDK init npm test, and let's see if our test is fine and working. Alright, our test is working and executed. Let's now add a testing step inside our pipeline, and we do this at stage level. Here we have the test stage inside the CI/CD stack. We have the stage. We can add a new step in order for it to run some automated tests. Well, we have the test stage and we can add a pre-step. This means that this step will run before the deployment will take place, and this is important for CI/CD. We want first to test if everything is alright, and then, only then, if everything is alright, we want to proceed with deployment. So add pre, and here we can call a new code build step. This is the one, and let's just say that this step will do unit tests like this. And also let's add some properties, and the properties we need to specify our commands, what actually will happen inside this step. First of all, since again we aren't at root level, first of all we need to change folders into this CDK CI CD. At least for me, maybe for you is not the case, but for me is CDK minus CI CD. Then we need to call npm clean install, and then we can call simply npm test. And basically this is it. We can now commit everything and see these steps in practice inside our CI/CD pipeline. And then we will break this implementation, and hopefully the breaking change will not be deployed. Let's see if this will happen or not. I will say right here, added unit tests. And again, I will commit and then wait like 5 minutes because this CodePipeline is so slow. Well, a few minutes have passed, and we can see now the new step inside our testing stage. As you can see, we have this unit test stage, and if I go to details, because it is executing as we speak, I can even see the logs from jest. If I go downstairs, I should see the logs from jest, this npm test. And as you can see here, I see what tests were run and that everything was alright. So this step should also be green at this point. We will wait a little and then the deployment will finish. Of course, there's nothing new. But what can we do at this point to see if the tests are really working? We can try, and no, we will surely break our build. Let's go to this services implementation and let's return 400 instead of 200. Now I will make a new commit and I will call this break build, and let's see if this build breaks, and more importantly, if the test won't pass, if this bad code will reach our implementation inside our AWS account. So I will commit this and I will call this break build. Let me see if this breaks locally stuff. Let me call npm test again. Yes, the tests are falling locally, they should also fall remotely. Let's see. Alright, and things are finally red, like we should have expected. As you can see, this test step is failed because these unit tests are failed. And as you can see, if the unit test step was failed, this means that the prepare and the deploy Lambda weren't executed. And this is very important. If there's a problem with our tests, this means that that code should not be deployed. Let's see the logs of this test and see what was wrong with our build. If we look downstairs, we will see exactly what was wrong. So we can know at this point what actions to take. The more important point is that our bad code wasn't implemented. If I look again at the code of our Lambda, if I check it, as you can see downstairs right here, maybe it's a little small for you, but the status code is still 200. This means that the bad change wasn't implemented. Now all I need to do is to revert that change and I will go to my VS Code and I will just fix the build. I will commit this and run again. So we saw in this lecture how we can implement basic unit tests or any kind of integration tests inside our CDK pipeline project. Let's move on into the next lecture for some final conclusions. Well, we reached the end of this section and we saw in this section how we can use CDK code pipelines to write ourselves pipelines for our code. Well, things aren't so easy, and I think this is still a new and not so popular technology, but I'm sure that with time and experience things can get a lot more better. For example, my main problem with this code pipeline, it is that it is very slow. We have to wait like 5 minutes before we know that something is right or wrong with our implementation. If there's a way to make things better, or if maybe I messed something up right here, you can let me know in the comment section or QA section. Well, another important discussion about these pipelines, and this is about CI/CD in general, is how we can configure our pipelines and our stages. For example, in this section we had one pipeline and one stage. Well, we can add multiple stages to a pipeline. Just like we added this test stage, we can add right here a live stage. I will say right here test live stage, and this should be like a live or better production stage, and everything will be replicated inside the production stage. Or there's another approach which I think is more cleaner. We can have multiple pipelines. We can have one pipeline for testing and another pipeline for deployment to production. That pipeline should read from a testing branch, and the other production branch should read from the main or production branch, and that branch should be very protected, you know, by a lot of before committing to that master branch. Things should be very protected. There should be a lot of steps in order to make sure that you don't mess up anything. Well, these are different approaches, and this is more a discussion about CI/CD in general and not about code pipeline. Well, let me know what you think about this code pipeline, what is your experience with it, and what you can also what you also did with it. For example, were you able to add alarms if maybe a build breaks? Is there a way we can add an alarm and maybe send an email or a message to Slack to see that the build was broken and to take immediate actions? This would be a great exercise. Maybe you can try it. For the moment, I thank you very much for watching this section. Well, we reached the end of the video. I want to say thank you for watching this, and I want to express my hope that what you learned right here will be very useful at your job or in your personal project. Like people say at the end of YouTube's videos, like, subscribe, and all the usual. I remind you, there's a full course in the description. This being said, I thank you very much. I wish you all the best in your life, in your career, and also a great day.